activate now. All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today's guest is a very popular guest, and early on, he was on quite a bit, but for some reason, he hasn't been on for a while, and you guys have been asking for him back, and so he is here today to do a wonderful presentation about the power of your personal choices. Please welcome back to the show, Dr. Stephan Esser. You look so nice.
Well, thanks, Chef AJ. And you look great too.
I didn't, if I had known this was like a suit and tie affair, I would have dressed a little bit fancier.
Well, I want to look good for all of your listeners out there, as good as the information that I'm going to be sharing today. So always a pleasure to join you again. Excited to be here.
Great. The power of your personal choices. I bet they're pretty powerful.
Pretty fantastic. Should we jump right in? Should I go to?
We can, unless you want to say what you've been up to, because it's been a while since I've seen you. And I know you have a place now, right?
We do. I was actually out this morning putting up some fence posts and things like that. We do. We've got about 6.5 acres in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, about 5 minutes from the ocean, and hoping to invite more and more friends there to detoxify, experience an intensive nutritional reset. And so we're very excited about that. Plus, I'm of course doing a lot of stuff online, got virtual programs every month that take about 50 people at a time, and been seeing some beautiful results. And so excited to have both in-person and virtual offerings to help people maximize their health. So that is always fun.
That is so great. Well, and can we get this information now on your website? Because I'll link to it for sure in the show notes if it's there.
Yeah, I mean, esserhealth.com is the easy place to keep track of what I'm doing, or on social media. Esser's Ranch is one Instagram, but my main one is Esser Health on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, so on and so forth. So yes, continuing to try to share the message of health and vitality in any way that I can.
Great. Well, we appreciate your passion for it. Yeah, like I said, if this doctor thing doesn't work out, you'd be an amazing preacher.
I'm ready to share the message. I love it. All right. Well, I'll go to share screen. Let's pop this baby up and let's jump right in. And because I know we're going to have some fun together. So the power of personal choices. Let's get right into the meat of this, if you will. So, most of you know, I grew up on this crazy miracle ranch, if you will, my grandfather's ranch, Esser's Health Ranch in South Florida. 10 acres of land, 30 people at a time, 30,000 total patients, catalog, reversing disease through food, exercise, therapeutic water fasting. So truly, I sit on my grandfather's shoulders. For those of you who don't know me, training, USF for medical school, Harvard for residency, Mayo Clinic for fellowships, and now on faculty for a number of residencies and fellowships, team physician for UNF, varsity athletics, and I do clinical orthopedic medicine as a day job as well. So lots of fun, lots of chances to help people impact lives for good. And that's what we're here to talk about today. What you do. You and I have to make a very simple decision every day we wake up. What we do matters to our health, or what we do doesn't matter to our health. That's the reality. I mean, it's so simple, so basic as to say that what you do either does or does not matter. What's your choice, right? Because when you and I, for example, go out and have all the fried food and the junk food and the Snickers and sit on the couch eating Haagen-Dazs and watching Netflix, at the heart of it, we're saying either what we do doesn't matter, or B, we don't really care. One of the two. One is an apathetic, depressed, I don't like myself, I don't like my life. But the reality is, at the heart, we're saying what I do doesn't matter. In other words, it's not going to improve my health. It's not going to improve my life, no matter what I do. So you've got to make that decision for you. But the reality is, if it matters what you do, then these basic tenets, the food, the movement, the sleep, the thoughts, the exposures, toxins like that, all of this matters. So it does matter. And if it does matter, these are the key elements that are the master levers of our health destiny. Now, the reality is the science is pretty clear that what you and I do, what we as a society do, has radically shifted our health and our vitality. So over 20 plus years ago, the World Health Organization said this, you can see it right in front of you, that the reality is the majority of disease and death in the world by now is actually related to behavior. So the foods we eat or don't eat, the movement we get, and the toxic exposures. Really, it comes down to these common diseases, right? So what we do radically influences these diseases. which are the leading diseases of lifestyle. We call them lifestyle diseases. These are the ones that cause the most problems in America. So even with COVID raging in 2020, right, still 200% more people died of heart disease than died of COVID. So crucial that you and I remember what really is most likely to kill us. And not to forget too, in the midst of COVID world, that the diseases that are most common and are related to lifestyle are also risk factors for severe COVID. Type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and of course, obesity. Right? So obesity increases your risk of an ICU admission from COVID by 500%. Increases your likelihood of dying by 200%, just obesity alone. But now we live in a culture, right, in which obesity has become the new normal. Now, it's crucial you understand this. This blows my mind every time I see these slides, is that in 1990, not a single state had more than 15% of its populace obese. This is crucial you understand this. 1990. This is not 1905. This is 1990. Most of us were born far before then. And yet not one state had more than 50% of its populace obese. And yet now, according to the New England Journal of Medicine, by 2030, 50% of every state in America will be obese. And you know, the number one body mass index size, the number one category in women will be severe obesity. Severe obesity. That blows my mind, as well as in non-Hispanic Blacks and those in lower income, that the number one BMI category will be severe obesity. This is mind-boggling when you think just where we were a few decades ago. So the reality is we just have to go back and live our lives the way that they were being lived, because our genetics have not changed. The genetics have not changed. Our environment, our lifestyle, the way we live has radically shifted and continues to do so to the point of great risk for all of us. You know, it's funny, Chef AJ, I see people in clinic every day, and every one of them will have a different reason. Well, I put all this weight on because I'm caring for a sick parent. I put all this weight on because I've got, children and I'm so busy. I put on all this weight because I have a stressful job. And the reality is we all have our little stories, but it's not that we personally have a problem. It's that we societally have set ourselves up for failure. And we reach, all of us, with habitual behaviors for food-like substances of addiction. We reach for what? Dopamine-rich foods. And these hypercaloric, hyperpalatable, toxic mishmash of things is what is making us all obese. And so if we want to be healthy, we have to be radically different than everybody else. And the problem with that increased obesity is the science says all of these diseases increase their frequency and risk if you're carrying extra weight. And that's radical when you look at this. I mean, everything from Alzheimer's disease to gestational diabetes to congestive heart failure to being the number one cause of liver disease in America. I mean, it's like, what? All of this from that weight. And so we should be saying, well, how do we get here from 1990 to 2022? Because it's kind of like the little kids lost in the wood who leave a little bit of a line of some food or pebbles so they can find their way out. Well, how do we get here? We need to know the path that got us here so we can go back. So we can go back to a healthier place for us, for our children, for our society. So how do we get here? Let's just hit actual objective data. So here's how we got here. This is USDA data. These are their slides right off their website. When it comes to added sugar in America today, the blue is what is recommended for Americans. The yellow is what we're eating. So this is the added amount of sugars consumed, right, as a percent of calories by both men and by women. Next, sodium. The blue is what is recommended. This yellow is where we are as a populace by age brackets. This is according, again, to the USDA. Next, added oils and fats. You can see we're still above that ideal, that green, the blue, etc. We're above it. What about meats? Even with the USDA's tainted opinion, even there, men are far and away above from the ages of 9 or 14, forgive me, to 70, far above what is recommended with the amount of equivalent intake. And then our friends, our fruits and vegetables, look where we are. The blue is recommended, and look where we are. Nowhere even near it. Nowhere near it. Both men, women, etc., for fruits and vegetables. So these factoids are startling. These are again off the USDA's website. Fewer than 9% of the populace of America eats the recommended amount of vegetables. Fewer than 12% of the recommended fruits. 8% of total calories come from fruits and vegetables. And 70% of calories eaten by adolescents comes from ultra processed foods. This is all the stuff out of fast foods, boxes, bags, cans, prepped stuff, etc. And fewer than 23% of us achieve exercise. My friends, this is where it gets so simple. You see the problem right there. We're not even touching the recommendations, which are already somewhat paltry, and we're not even near them. So what if all we did was eat a more rational diet based in science? We didn't join a cult. We didn't go crazy. We just ate more fruits and vegetables. We tried to achieve the recommended amount of movement every day that every single national and international organization recommends. This is very important. You remember something. Sometimes it might be tempting to hear somebody speak and say, oh, they're an extremist. They're off over there. Well, I can tell you that every single national organization, CDC, NIH, American Heart Association, American Lung Association, American Cancer Society, they all say the same thing. Eat more fruits and vegetables and move. And if we just did that, radical things would happen. But unfortunately, we're at a place now where we've radically increased the total caloric intake of hyperpalatable, nutrient poor, calorie dense foods, and we're not moving anymore. It's that simple. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to change this, but I'm saying it's simple to change this. Those are two very different words. And when people do live healthier lives, they get amazing results, like in the HAIL project in Europe, following people for years, looking at their likelihood of death. Well, if they just ate more plants, they kept alcohol less than 1 or 2 drinks a day, and they got movement every day, and they didn't smoke, they were less likely to die. These are people in their 70s to 90s already. They were less likely to die, and they reduced that risk by more than 50%. No drug, no surgery on earth can give you that result of reducing your risk of dying by half over the next 10 years. They can't. But you know what can? Your fingers, your feet, and your forks. That's what can. So if you'd like to live a little bit longer, right, for some random reason, well, then maybe this needs to be part of your plan, this rational approach. Or the EPIC trial, again in Europe, tens of thousands of people followed for multiple years. And if they don't smoke, if they kept the BMI below obesity, they got exercise, and they ate a rational diet, guess what happens? They reduce their risk of diabetes by 93%, heart attack by 80%, and the list goes on. Those common diseases begin to become uncommon. It's very important you understand something. Many of the things that we have accepted as a populace as being normal or just part of aging are neither of those two things. They're instead toxic states of dis-ease, of physiologic chemical dysfunction in our bodies, like type 2 diabetes. All that is a physiologic response to excess fat that we consume or fat that we wear that results in insulin not able to do its job, so blood sugars climb. It's not a disease, it's a state of physiologic dysfunction. But we have induced it with our fingers, our feet, and our forks. What about if you already have some of these diseases, like you're on metformin or glipizide for your diabetes? Well, in 3 weeks, studies show that if you do nothing but a plant-based program, you can 70% of the time get off all those medicines. 40% of people on insulin can get off in 3 weeks with normal numbers. Over 100 studies published by the Pritikin Institute here in the peer-reviewed literature showing this again and again and again ad nauseum, that plants and movement together radically reduce the risk and radically reverse type 2 diabetes. In addition, diabetic neuropathies in 80% of people melt away when they're given a pure plant-based program and gentle movement. In addition, blood pressure radically drops in people who consume a plant-based program while it goes up in those who consume a carnivorous or omnivoric diet. In addition, on average, people who eat a plant-based program are 5 BMI points lower than their carnivore or omnivore counterparts in the same communities. So that weight, just by eating more plants, immediately begins to decline. And of course, plant-based programs are the only programs to have ever shown the reversal of heart disease, right? the Ornish programs, the Esselstyn programs, all published in the peer-reviewed literature, saving money, saving lives, reducing surgical needs, and even plant-based programs showing a decrease in severe COVID cases in those who consume a plant-based program, as well as, of course, with cancer, showing that those who consume the largest quantities of fruits and vegetables and micronutrient-dense foods significantly reduce their risks of the most common cancers of breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, uterine cancer, and the list goes on. So eating more plants and gentle movement in both epidemiologic and in interventional studies shows that we lose weight, we lower our risk of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancers, osteoarthritis, and severe upper respiratory infections. The data is there. The science is there. There's no argument or debate about that data. It is clear. It is robust. In fact, it is relatively incontrovertible that the power of your plate is astonishing. But all too often, you and I look down at our plate and we look at it as how much protein, how much fat, how much carbohydrate is here, without recognizing that it is the very life-giving essence, but also the death-giving essence, right, that we are about to consume. You know, it's not just about, right, kind of how does it look or how many calories does it have? No, we're missing. Remember that food is information at the cellular level. It radically influences the expression of your genes. I love one of Dean Ornish's studies with men with prostate cancer, given his heart diet and followed for a year, and then harvesting some of their cells and looking at the genes and showing how some genes were turned on and other genes were turned off just by the food and the movement and the emotional connection. That you are radically influencing your health today, tomorrow, and for years to come. You know, here's the truth, my friends, is that you're creating your health today for 10 years from now. See, a lot of us put our health on the back burner. We're like, oh, yeah, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. You know, kids are going to be in college soon. Yeah, you know, and my dad's about to die. He's in hospice, you know, and my job will get better soon. You know, I can focus then. Really? Because all that's going to happen in about 5 or 10 years is going to be older. That's all that's going to happen. It's not like your life suddenly can be perfect. Everything's just the way you want it. And even if it is better, as far as time, finances, or opportunity, you're just going to be older. And now you're going to be reaping the rewards of the toxins that you introduced into your body for decades. So what you and I have to decide is, how do I want to feel, look, and function 10 years from now? I know Chef AJ lives this 100%. Why? Because she's down, she's exercising on the bike, she's on the elliptical, she's doing her stretches, she's eating the healthy food, right? She is committed to living the life that she shares with everybody else. This is how you and I should be living our lives as well. That we care about the future. You know, it's crazy when you think about it. A lot of people treat their health sometimes the same as they treat their finances. Oh, I'll put some money in the bank at some point. And they keep forgetting to do it instead of prioritizing. But that's why you're here today. You're watching this video because you want to prioritize your health. And that's what we want for you as well. So the power of the plate, the power of movement, and perhaps most powerful, the power of the mind. You know, because a lot of what I just shared with you, you probably know, maybe not the exact statistics, but you know it intuitively. I mean, your grandmother told you to eat your broccoli. Come on, right? You knew this. But at the heart of it is, do you know it? Know it, right? In other words, are you embracing it? Are you filling your heart, your mind, and your life with it? Are you willing to change who you were to become the healthy version of you that you've always wanted? Or are you going to spend thousands of % of energy on anxiety, depression, shame, guilt, feeling that you're not good enough, you can't do it, you failed in the past, your grandmother won't support you, your brother won't support you, your friend, family member is too busy, it costs too much, I don't know how to prepare, all the reasons, all the excuses that have some legitimacy, many of them, but the majority of them are just simply little bumps in the road, simply little puzzles that we should solve. I love this gentleman. I saw him the other day in clinic, 81 years old. I saw him on, I think, December 20-something. On January the 3rd, he started my 4-week nutritional program just on his own. I gave him the handout, he downloaded whatever, and he did it. He came back to see me on February the 3rd, 1 month after. This gentleman, actually February 2nd, somewhere there, this gentleman lost 32 pounds in less than 1 month. He dropped his blood pressures from the 170s, 180s to 110s. His blood sugars, which usually are 150 in the morning, were now 90. His diabetic neuropathies in his legs was gone. And his knee pain, which is why he came to see me, was resolved. He used to work at a golf course as a ranger where he'd go out and start, or a starter to that, et cetera. And he had stopped doing that because his knees were so bad. Now he just sat on the golf cart and drove around. But now because his knee pain was gone and his pain was better and his function was better, he was going back to being a starter out there doing what he loved and enjoyed. This gentleman had severe swelling in both legs when I met him, uncontrolled or poorly controlled diabetes, uncontrolled or poorly controlled high blood pressure, and chronic pain. In less than 4 weeks, because he believed he could do it and chose to try it, he radically changed his present health and his health for years to come. So you've been watching Chef AJ's program and you've seen people. How committed are you? Have you applied 100% what you've heard Chef AJ and her guests talk about to your life? Are you willing to do it for 4 to 6 weeks? Do you believe that you deserve to be healthy and well? Or are you still caught up in a place where you're not achieving that? So many people have done my programs. Here's just some photos of them. And it's fun now in my virtual program is every day I'm getting feedback from people who are changing their life and changing their health. Not me, them. I'm here to cheer them on, to guide the way, to walk with them. But it's their decision making. It's your decision when you sit down at that plate next to say, is there enough color here? Are the micronutrients going to reinforce and vitalize my health? Or is this all just dead food and dead animals and junk? What do I deserve? What do I want to put into my body? And that brings us to this mindset. Are you still in a victim mindset of your life? Or are you in a victor mindset? That victim mindset says, I'm too old. That man didn't say that. He's 81. He said, what the heck? Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. I'm too lazy. I'm too habituated. I'm too addicted. It's too difficult. I don't know what to make. I don't know how to make it. I don't know where to buy the food. I'm too impoverished. If you find all the reasons to not be successful, you will not be successful. You are correct. But if instead you take on the mindset of a victor, of one who is a winner, who does achieve, who does overcome, now your life, your health can radically be different. No, you may not end up being like your 16-year-old self, but you will be the best version of you today, whether that's 22, 49, or 89. In addition, I want to challenge you. You are not a leaf, and you need to stop acting like you are. You know, many of you right now are living your lives, and it's just like, oh, it's a rough day at the office. Oh my gosh, where are the chips? Oh, it was a tough thing with my spouse. I need to get the ice cream out. Oh, it was a tough thing. Oh, the media. Oh, COVID. Oh, right. Everything is just blowing you constantly. And as a result, because you have no guidance, you're just a leaf in the wind blowing this way and that. And as a result, you're more likely to fall into a place of dopamine. You're going to reach for the things that make you feel comfortable and safe. They call them comfort foods because they release dopamine and give you a sense of safety, but not because they're healthy for you or good for you, but rather they make you feel something. But it's time for you to no longer be a leaf. It is time for you to be an architect, to fly to a 30,000 foot view in your life and look down and say, how is this playing out? You know, I saw a person in clinic the other day, they were 422 pounds. I offered this person they could stay at my home for free and I would care for them. I offered them all kinds of things, and yet they were not willing, not ready cognitively to change. Because they could not see past the challenges of every day. Oh, well, I've got this. Oh, well, this is happening. Oh, da, da. My friends, it's time for us to stop. We need to get out of our headspace. We need to get out of our own place of negative self-talk and limitation and fly up and look down. Look at our life. Where is it headed? Are you about to careen off the end of the cliff? Is your diabetes so out of control that it's starting to cause vision changes, kidney dysfunction, etc.? Are you on 6 medications every day? Do you have chronic pain and swelling in your limbs? Stop. Stop. It is time to be an architect of your life. If this is not who you wanted to be when you were 10, if this is not who you wanted to be when you were 22, well, I'm here to tell you there's radical changes that you can make that will radically alter your health today and for years to come. But you've got to be willing to no longer act and think and behave like a leaf in the wind and storms of life. You are also not on a wagon. When you join Chef AJ and you're learning from her and all the people she has on, or do my programs or anyone else's approach, you're not on a wagon. This is not something you do when you fall off and the wagon leaves you and you're crying in the mud. This is a choice every day of where you choose to put your health foot. One step, the next step, the next step. It doesn't matter if you step into mud or briars or anything of that kind. You just keep walking. You keep making healthy decisions. People sometimes will write me or reach out to me and say, I'm having such a hard time. And you're right. Life can be challenging and difficult. But you know what? If you take back on that victor and architect mindset, you can start saying, wow, this is a really tough project. I'm building this home, and wow, the angles of this and the elevations of that and the amount of wood that we need here. This is a challenge. But you know what you do? If you're that architect, you say, let's do this. Let's solve the problem. Let's figure out how to make this the best house, the best building that we can make. That's my challenge to you today, is to say that for your own life. Are you doing the best you can do? In fact, simplify. Are you doing what you know you should do? Imagine if you just did every day what you know you should do. Now, it's fascinating. When I hear that word should do, it makes me feel like I'm 13 and my mother's telling me, you should do this, Stephan. And many of you may, in fact, have that derogatory, pejorative sense of those words. Yet the reality is, we all know what we should do. So are you still acting like you're an adolescent in your parents' home? Is that what's going on? Because it's time to adult up, right? It's time to man or woman up and become the best version of you. But again, that can be painful, challenging. Because when you go to sit down with the ice cream, you have to be like, wait, what am I doing? He's right. And you have to be man or woman enough to take the ice cream, throw it in the trash, and never bring it into your home again. But you've got to make that decision for you. Do you want adult health? And by that, I mean vital, amazing health. Or do you want to be just squandering it as you age? And that gets to this. Many of you may have wounds, brokenness, vulnerabilities, things you struggled or suffered with, sexual abuse, personal, emotional abuse, who knows what it is. But these things need to be solved. They need to be healed, whether it be mental health, spiritual health. You need healing. To come to the place to say you are worthy. You are worthy of making healthy decisions for you, not because someone else tells you you should, but because you inherently believe that you as an individual, as a person, are worthy of excellent health and vitality. And I want to look you in the eyes right now, and I want to tell you this. You are worthy. You deserve health. Let that sink in for a moment. You are worthy. Because you may be compromising yourself. You may be sabotaging yourself because you just don't think you're worthy. Because you were always told by your parents that you were a fat slob, or by your teacher that you were unmotivated, or by your ex-spouse who said you're pathetic. Well, you know what? That's not true. And the reality is, you and I have the opportunity to remake, to reform ourselves cognitively and physically every single day. That's what's amazing about this life that you and I have. I woke up this morning and I had an opportunity to make a choice. Would I live out and become the best version of me today? Or would I squander another day, another meal, another opportunity for movement? The beauty is, you don't have to shame yourself if you missed out on exercise or if you ate unhealthfully. It's like, okay, so what? Now move forward. But remember, the right side of your brain, the piece of you that's addicted to dopamine and laziness and not moving and all this, well, that side wants to compromise you. It doesn't want you to become the best version of you. And there's that part of you that's still adolescent, that doesn't want to grow up. My friends, when you make that decision and that choice again and again and again, to eat the healthy food, to move with your body, to think the thoughts that are positive and optimistic and reinforcing, I promise you it's amazing. And I want to invite you into that place. I want to welcome you into a place where you feel worthy, you feel joyful. The reality is you can't cheat your body. So throw out that phrase that you sometimes use. You never cheated. There's no cheat meal. Your body experiences every single thing you do. So as a result, you could just say, I ate something unhealthy. All right, move on. Now let's go eat something healthy. There's nothing to beat yourself up about or feel depressed about. I have people sometimes who write me and say, oh, I was doing so well for a while there, but now I'm back, eating unhealthily. All right, well, let's go back and eat healthy again. It really is that simple, isn't it? That you have another meal. The meals that you're about to eat, make sure it's healthy. Don't go back into a place where you're bogged down, throwing yourself into the mud and just, coating yourself. It's so hard. It's so difficult. I'm such a failure. All the mistakes I made when I was 26, I did that. Oh, last week I had that. Who cares? All that matters is right now, right? As they say, the past creates depression. The present creates anxiety. This is the only gift you have, the present right now. So make choices. It's not about perfection. I'll never be perfect. You'll never be perfect. That's the reality, right? We will age, we will gray, we will wisen, things happen. It's not about perfection. It's about excellence. That's what you're achieving. That's what you're striving for. You want to be the best version of you that the world has ever seen. And remember, your health is not the end goal. Your health is the foundational goal. Your health is the foundation on which everything else rides. Your job, your family relationships, your sports, your hobbies. If you are not healthy, all of those are compromised to some extent. So your health is the foundation of all of these things. And I want to remind you, this is not a cult. Chef AJ would be a great cult leader, but this is not a cult. This is science. This coming from a guy who trained at Harvard and Mayo and can write off for you, throw out to you all the different studies published in the peer-reviewed literature. This is not a cult. This is about rational, science-based approaches to health. That's what this is. So my friends, here's what we know. The most science-proven approach to nutrition is a plant-based program. Movement of your body is therapeutic and function promoting. Mood, stress, and spirituality are powerful. Toxins compromise us. Sleep is crucial for us. And all of that wraps together into a place that says health comes from healthy living. And all those other pieces make up what is healthy. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, Chef AJ and your listeners. And with that, I want to remind all of them, your fingers, feet, and forks are the master levers of your health destiny. That's the reality. That's what's moving and shifting you as you move forward with your health. So as always, I love to join you, Chef AJ, and I'm very open to any questions from the audience, comments, things like that we can address together.
Yes, thank you. This was a wonderful presentation. And I've been telling the audience that you also gave a wonderful presentation for the Truth About Weight Loss Summit that's coming up in just a few days. So I've been providing links for that so people can watch that talk. So one of the first things you said, Dr. Esser, is that at the very beginning of your talk, that if people are engaging in unhealthy habits, then either they don't know or they don't care. I'm wondering if there's not a third option, because I think especially people that smoke, I don't think in this day and age, anybody thinks cigarettes are healthy, but yet people continue to smoke. I'm wondering if a third possibility is they maybe do know and maybe they even care, but because addiction is such a powerful force in people's lives when it comes to substances like tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, food, that they can't do anything because it's such a strong hold.
I think it's absolutely right. I think that addiction So for the people who, let's say, are in the gutter, in the streets, right, laying there with no support systems, nothing whatsoever, especially for them, that third one I think is the most compelling. But I would argue that for the person who knows when they are in a moment of clear thinking and rational thinking, that's where they need to take on that architect mindset, right? Because for many of the people who struggle, for example, with food addiction, when they are in that place where they are in a rational mindset, that is the time they need to channel factor their life for success, right? So the people, for example, who say they want to lose weight, they want to be healthy, they want to get off their diabetic meds, if they are keeping the unhealthy foods in the house, they're not serious, right? As you and I talk about, they're still. So when they're in that rational moment, that's the time they've got to go quickly as the architect and channel factor their life in the direction of success. But truly, addiction is a brutal thing that requires support on so many levels for people. And of course, as you suggested, the salt, the oil, the fat, the processed foods, these are more addictive than many of the street drugs we speak of.
Well, I agree with you that they would stop buying it. But yet, what I hear a lot, and tell me if you hear this from people, because I know you're doing that wonderful 4-week program, which, by the way, I linked to below in the show notes, is, well, but my family doesn't eat this way. And so they continue to have the foods in the house, often even preparing them. Mm-hmm. And then it's like torture.
Yes. And so that's where, again, as the architect might say, wow, getting this concrete in that's just the right amount from the right place is so hard, and the trucks, they're not traveling. So what we've got to do is break it down objectively and rationally and say, okay, so I've got this spouse who's not supportive. I've got these kids who are not willing to eat what I want to prepare. The first step is to make sure that they understand fully why you're doing this, right? That call for help, that empathy, that if you respect me, I need this support. And the next is the very, very concrete actions that have to be taken. Is there going to be a separate shelf in the refrigerator that's just for the health promoting food? Is the unhealthy food put in a refrigerator in the garage? Is that right? So on and so forth. So it's not easy to do in that scenario, but it can be done. And we have to walk through that process, coming up with stepwise, okay, well, how do we resolve this? And so I tell my people in the 4-week program, the first thing is, if you have an unsupportive spouse, well, how do we break this down? Do they love you, this spouse? Because if they do, we need to catalyze that, right? If you love me, and I know you do, here's what I need from you. Here are the tangible things I need, right? If the spouse doesn't love them and there's huge conflict in the family, well, then we need a counselor in there, right? To see if that marriage can even be solvable and salvageable, right? And stepwise progression of this. But we've had so many, you and I both have had people who put their mindset to it, that of a victor mindset, and said, it's going to be brutal, but I'm going to make 2 separate meals, and that's what I'm going to do. And they do it. And as they get healthier, I had one of my 4-weekers not too long ago do this. As they were getting healthier, their spouse actually joined them. And now their spouse got healthy too. And now the spouse was supportive. And now it was beautiful to see. But it required the person who had the vision to start the journey. And once they were moving down the pipe, now other people joined them.
Great. We have so many nice comments. People love your passion. I love Dr. Esser's message and enthusiasm. He's contagious, and anyone that listens to him has to be motivated to follow a whole food, plant-based way of life. Absolutely. So a couple of questions, because people know you work a lot with orthopedic situations with people, were sent in on that topic. So if you don't mind, I'll ask them, because people did take the time to write in. One is Heidi, and she said, do you do private consults in general? And do you, when people have muscle pain, do you suggest heat, ice, or both? And if so, for how long?
The first thing I'd say about muscle pain is we want to know why they're having that pain. Is it because they exercise a lot and it's just delayed onset muscle soreness? Or is it related to a myopathy or myositis, some sort of inflammatory disease process? Or is it actually the muscles hurt, but it's due to nerves? One of the things I do when I see people in clinic is do very sort of detailed analysis, evaluations, clinical examinations to determine what the source of pain is. So if it's delayed onset muscle soreness, excellent hydration, good effleurage, like a good muscle massage, along with some ice baths are always wonderful. But if it's a chronic pain, or if there's overlapping neurologic involvement, well, then the treatments are very different. So first of all, knowing exactly what the cause of that pain is key. Now, the studies show, if we're getting back to the nutrition, which is great, is that the more, if you will, anthocyanin-rich and nitrate-rich foods, thus the deep purples, blues, and greens we consume, the better the blood flow to our muscles and the lower the amounts of muscle soreness after exercise and activity. So food, in this case, truly becomes a medicine for prevention.
Great, thank you. And this is a question from Mark, who says he's been eating whole food plant-based SOS free for over 20 years, but developed a bump on his right foot and was diagnosed with, I think it's I don't know if it's insertional or insensional peroneal tendonitis. Do you know what to do for that?
Yeah, the peroneal tendons are two tendons on the lateral or outside of the foot that wrap around and insert into a small bone. These tendons can get inflamed and irritated, especially if people have uneven shoe wear, are walking on uneven surfaces a lot, or have significant flat feet or other deformities of the feet. So the first thing is to look at kind of shoe wear, footwear. What are we doing? Activities. What's flaring up this tendon? The next thing is to address that if there is a mechanical problem we can resolve. Otherwise, if it's about pain management, aggressively icing the area, using some topical anti-inflammatory creams, whether it be capsaicin, arnica, or even Voltaren gel. And then for some people, biomechanically, we actually put them in a tall boot, a walking boot, to shut down that tendon, allow inflammation to die down. If it doesn't resolve, then an MRI can often show if there's a partial tendon tear, and then that can be treated with growth factor injections like PRP, or in very rare cases, surgery.
Oh, wow. So this is something you've seen before?
Just a few times.
Oh my God. Because he said he went to a podiatrist, but I didn't read it, so he could see.
I see everything top of head, bottom of the toes. So yeah.
Oh my God. That's amazing. So Melody says she sees some ukuleles behind you and wondered if you played.
I strum. But I do not play yet and still working on it. So we'll see if I get you some music for our next shindig.
Nice. And Max says, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do, but it doesn't have much on it. So hopefully later this year, we're going to start putting up more. A lot of my little videos I put on Instagram, just a couple minutes in length every day. I try to do an inspirational, encouraging one. But hopefully later this year, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Someone says you should be voted president of Whole Food Plant-Based. That's very nice.
Well, if sort of heritage has anything to do with it, I am a 4th generation plant-based guy, but I'm just happy to be one of many.
That it's just so amazing, because that means that everybody was raised this way, and there's not a problem. I mean, there's, when people say, oh, there's a problem with the vegan diet or the plant-based diet, I remember Dr. Clapper saying there are no failed vegans that were born vegan.
Yeah, I think that the reality is, when you understand how good you feel and you see it again and again, and it plays out in your life, and then you understand too how powerful it is, obviously, for animals and for the environment, you have so many reasons to maintain an excellent plant-based program. So yeah, I would encourage all of you out there is to keep sharing the message with the people that you love, with joy, with empathy and compassion. But your example is the most powerful sort of predictor of other people's behaviors, in the sense of, if you are joyful, if you look vital and well, and you're living this life, other people begin to want to know what you're doing, and they join because of just, wow, they want to feel that way too. So yeah, no, it was, and of course, the more people in your friend and family circles that now eat this way, the easier it is for you, right? So all the big family gatherings in our household are so simple. Nothing crazy shows up. It's all health promoted food. And the rare thing that shows up that's unhealthy, people are like, hey, who brought that? How'd that sneak in here? That has cheese? Why does that have cheese in it? Why'd you bring that in here? Right?
That's funny.
Which is great.
Denise says that your photos of your food on Instagram look great, and was wondering who does most of the cooking in your home.
We split it. So myself and my wife, I usually make all the breakfasts, during the week. Weekends, I usually make multiple meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we both like to prepare food. Now, I'll tell you, my wife, when we got married, didn't know how to make anything more than some pasta. And she has just radically changed her abilities. So I say that to all of you, because if you've not prepared food, if you're not good at it, right? This is a skill that can be learned, an art that can be engaged in, and it can become fun. And now she says she really enjoys preparing it and has fun making the meals, and as I do as well. And so you should play with your food and have fun with it and be creative. It's such a delight.
We should have her on the show sometime, because I've met her, but I don't think my audience has it. I'm having Lisa Furman on tomorrow. Turnabout is fair play. We should.
There you go. We'll
Yeah.
have to do it. Yeah, and she has been the powerhouse behind our juice bungalow, where people come and stay and do fresh squeezed juices. So that'd be great. I think we should have her on and do some juice videos. And
that'd be wonderful. Please, I would love to do that. And then she can talk about raising her kids this way. It'd be amazing. Please put us in touch. Yep. Narelle says, what are the best exercises to maintain bone and muscle strength as you age?
So the best exercises will be those that are weight bearing or force producing. And so it needs to be significant enough that there is a demand placed on the muscles that results in some muscle hypertrophy. So for example, if you're using 5-pound weights and doing little curls, that's not going to be enough to actually create enough demand that then produces tendon thickening and bone strengthening. So we're looking for weight bearing exercises. I prefer initially for the beginner, either body weight type stuff to get good form and technique, or individuals going to the gym and using machinery where they can slowly increase the weight over time so that their bodies can adapt to the demand, but then you continue the demand. So what you don't want to do is become static with your exercise routine, not challenging the muscles and the bones adequately enough. They say, for example, you need about 60% of your 1 rep max. So let's say you could push out 100 pounds. Well, you need to be doing about 60% of that to really get good bone building and muscle building effect.
It's interesting, as a 4th generation plant eater, you weren't just raised vegan, you were raised like with the principles of natural hygiene or natural health. So you were eating pretty much from birth at what people call now an SOS free diet. And I'm wondering, do you get pushback for, like I do? Like I get attacked for like how I'm making it so difficult because I don't tell anybody to eat this way. I mean, right. I do hope that people will at least eat vegan. But the reason I bring it up is yesterday I had a product on the show, a person that has a product, and I guess you sent some if you like, because I remember last year for your summit interview, you did a cooking demo. It was wonderful. Right. You showed how to make the food so delicious and easy. But you mentioned that if you're cooking for others, you're not going to add meat to it, but that you might put a little salt in it for the others. And so this product, I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called green salt. It's made out of sea asparagus, and it still has sodium, but 50% less. It's got 135 milligrams per 1/4 teaspoon. It tastes like salt to me. I don't eat salt, but I got it for friends, because then but the questions that were coming up yesterday, and the gentleman, Chris, who is the co-founder of the company, neither of us could answer because we're not doctor, is salt. So in other words, is it the milligrams of sodium that we worry about, whether they come from this product, table salt, Celtic, Himalayan, miso, soy sauce? Did you understand the question? Like, so I'm not telling people to buy this. Like my philosophy is, if you can eat SOS free, please do. But if you're somebody that has to have salt, well, maybe this could help a little bit because you're using less. So I'm curious, because people were saying, well, is it still as addictive? Is it still going to be a problem for weight loss and blood pressure? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Right. So I think at the heart of it, it's about that sodium molecule, that Na, right? Regardless of how it's bound up, et cetera. When it gets into the body, remember a couple of things. Number one is, so let's talk about 5 things with salt real quick. So number one, salt is an appetite stimulant, as you suggested. So it prompts you to want to eat more of it. And as a result, you're more likely to gain weight, because you're eating more calories than you otherwise would. Number two, it causes fluid retention, right? Which obviously drives blood pressure up, increases swelling in the limbs, increases the likelihood of some nerve pain because of the pressure on the nerves, et cetera. Number three is that studies would suggest that it increases the risk of dementia over time. You look at some studies that are out in both animal and adult models, the amount of salt seems to have a negative effect cognitively and on the nervous system. Number four is that the increased amount of salt that we consume, also salt is an Na+, so it's a cation. So it displaces calcium out of our body, right? Because Na+, Ca+ or calcium. So high amounts of salt increase your risk of osteoporosis over time. Very interesting stuff. So there are a lot of different factors. And then of course, salt also damages the endothelia, increasing the likelihood of heart disease. So a lot of different factors that go on there. So the sodium molecule itself would be likely to cause those same problems, right? Whether it be the fluid retention or the desire for more calories, et cetera. So I think at the heart of it is always to, for the person who, for example, consumes any salt source, is to say, well, what are my goals? If my goal is vibrant, vital health, and I struggle with food addiction and obesity, well, then you really want to bring the salt down as much as possible. But again, if you have a high risk of heart disease or high risk of osteoporosis, you probably want to bring that salt down as much as possible. But again, I'm not looking for perfection for folks, right? And so a little bit of salt here or there, I'm not going to argue about. But if you, again, are a true food addict and struggle with, then you really need to bring it down. Now, I know for me, when I eat some bunch of salt, I feel it in my joints. I do feel a difference. But that's because I've been away from salt so much that when I get a couple meals of salt, it's immediately like, ugh, I don't feel as good. So the key here would be, what are the goals for the individual, and is removing that salt in their best interest. So like the 81-year-old guy I had the other day, clearly he has extensive edema of both legs and swelling. When he took the salt out, everything just shedded. He immediately diuresed. He peed off all the excess salt and peed off all the excess water. Thus, weight drops, swelling legs drops, blood pressure drops, all these things improve. So I think it's key there. So as far as that product is concerned, well, if it's 50% less salt, but yet gives a real nice, quote, salty flavor, well, then it would be preferable over the soy sauce or preferable over the Himalayan pink salt, et cetera. That's at the heart of it, But
Right.
I tell people too, let's not even talk about salt if you don't have the other issues I just spoke of until you're 100% whole food plant-based and eating that consistently. And now you want to argue about adding a little salt, fine, right? But the problem is many people get stuck in the forest from the trees and they get all confused and they start arguing over salt and oil. And well, this guy said olive oil is good, right? Like some of the plant-based people that are saying olive oil is good. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Yeah, it's pure fat. Why are we doing that to people who want to lose weight? It makes no sense. So yeah.
Well, now oil they're saying is good too,
Right.
Yeah,
Well, number one,
yeah,
right. You and I know people like to hear good things about their bad habits. That's number one, and they'll grab any little piece of evidence they can. But number two is we know that pure fat is never good for our bodies when it comes to weight loss. And as we just said, 70% of Americans, right, are overweight or obese. So clearly weight loss is a big priority for many of us and needs to be focused in on. So most of the postmenopausal women I know who struggle with weight loss, it's purely the oils because they have their salad and put a dollop of oil on. They have their sauteed vegetables, put the oil on, and that's enough to maintain their weight at a static place.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely true. Let's see the questions. Well, here, lower body exercises for hip pain. I know you're going to say first, you got to get to the source of the pain, right?
That's right. Is this hip arthritis? Is it a stress fracture? Is it the low back referring in the hip? All this is crucial. But most of us cannot go wrong with good old Jane Fonda's, laying on your side, leg lifts, right? Doing high rep sets of those, a little weight around your ankle. Those are always a win-win. If you have a lot of pain with simple squats, then don't do them. But again, first understand what the pain is due to, then strengthen the muscles around and try to reduce the pain and alter biomechanics.
Right. Thanks. Dina says, have you heard about a study that says to eat 6 to 12 prunes for bone health?
Yes, I have. And prunes are delightful and very low risk for you. Good for the gut, nice source of fiber, helps with bowel movements. So I think having a couple of prunes is probably a very reasonable option.
Yeah. Since you were raised without salt, did you have to supplement with iodine from childhood, or how did that work?
No, interestingly enough, we didn't and never had any problems. So, I always hear about that endemic, kind of goiters and all these other problems, but it never was a problem for any of us.
Nice. Now Linda's saying she's sorry she ordered this based on what you said, but would you like to try a small sample for company? Not
sure,
free.
always happy to. And again, as I said, my opinion about the consumption of salt is that if we're trying to lose weight, take the salt out. If we're trying to drop blood pressure, get it out, and so on and so forth, right? The key factors that I said. But if you're otherwise healthy, slender, not on any medications, no major other risks, and you want to add a little salt here and there, that's a personal decision. But again, for the majority of us are not in that category. That's where it's crucial, right? You and I need to always look in the mirror and be very honest about our health. We can no longer lie. The people who say to me, oh, I'm really healthy, and I look at their med list, they're on like 10 meds, and I'm like, dude, you're not healthy. Let's just be honest about this, right? So that's where it's crucial.
Great. I don't know if this part of the body is something you treat, but I'll ask anyway. And it would be nice to have an expert on this because this question comes up a lot from Rebecca. Any advice for TMJ therapy?
Yes, TMJ is a challenging, right, area here, the temporomandibular joint where the jaw meets with the face. And this joint can get overloaded either due to poor dentition, abnormal alignment, or muscles that are inappropriately tight in different areas. So you get trigger points in your masseters, et cetera. Other people over time just get bad arthritis. The first thing to do is to get a good physical therapist who focuses on TMJ work, get their hands up in your mouth, working those muscles out, even a little trigger point, sort of dry needling or acupuncture they can do, release some of these. A nice bite guard helps some people as well. If you have any malalignment, seeing a good dentist who can help and assist with that. And then we start getting into injectables. So I do PRP into the TMJ, for people who have bad arthritis, et cetera.
Wow. I've had TMJ and it's actually finally getting better after 6 months. And the physical therapist, he never put his finger in my mouth. I feel cheated, but he does do things that really, like he does ultrasound, and
Yeah.
it really does help.
Even when he knew you were a vegan and you wouldn't bite him, he still didn't put his finger.
But he gave me lots of exercises.
Yep, that's right.
So it's really actually been the most wonderful thing. And then also I did see an endodontist and get something. So it took a while, but it's thankfully getting better.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize though, first to get that injection you talked about, what specialty of doctor would a person go to?
So some maxillofacial surgeons do it, some dentists do it, some sports doctors like me do it, but mainly the dental guys.
Nice. Jerry says, are algae-based omega-3s harmful or helpful?
Oh gosh, well, who's the third party that's evaluating them for heavy metals or toxins or any of these things? We don't fully know, so I'd want to see the data. Is it USP certified? Is that, and even that, can you trust it? So it's always challenging, So again, there's some element of faith that you have to accept those products on. And if you're going to be taking an omega-3, I encourage people to, perhaps get their omega-3 levels checked, and then 6 months later, recheck them and see if there's any difference. See if these supplements are really making an effect.
A couple of people are asking about noises that they're saying crepitus, like when knee crunching noises. Are those normal or just the vagaries of old age?
That's right. So our cartilage is a smooth layer on the end of the bones. And so as you move, it goes shoom, 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 nice and smooth. But over time, due to trauma, age, genetics, inflammation, this smooth layer becomes rough. And as it gets rough, now when you bend and extend, it can create a grinding. It's called crepitus. It's a sign of some arthritic changes in the joint. And so what we want to do is try to work on biomechanical balances across the joint so that these do not progress further. So for example, the knees, working the lateral hips, working the inner quad, working on quad flexibility, all of these are crucial to offset some of the biomechanical changes. In addition, of course, the plant-based program reduces inflammation, reduces swelling in the joints, and slows the degeneration of the joint.
Right. Maybe you're the one that told me about this, so I apologize if I'm telling you something you told me. But did you read the study about how no amount of alcohol is good for brain health?
That's right. People struggle with this so much, and the reality is alcohol is a neural toxin. It is a cellular toxin. That's why most people drink it, because it toxifies your nervous system. So you're like, I feel nice, yeah. And so the problem is, yes, that study out of Europe that followed people, not just on cognitive function, but actually on MRIs of their brain, looking at the amount of white matter. And they found that over time, if you were consuming alcohol as compared to the counterparts who didn't, you lost more white matter. Done, end of story. And it didn't matter how little you drank or how much, it was all risky. It's just foolish when people argue about this, because alcohol is not a normal physiologic thing that we should be drinking or consuming. It is rotting something, right? Rotten grapes, rotten this, rotten that. That's the reality. All that happened was that cavemen or cave women forgot something that rotted. They drank it and were like, "Ooh, I feel kind of good, this is woohoo." And then they began to drink more of it. That's all. So, I encourage people to completely eliminate or extremely minimize the consumption of alcohol. It has no place in the life of a person who cares about their health.
I love that. It has no, oh gosh, brilliant. It must have been so interesting the way you were raised, because obviously you weren't raised to drink alcohol or even coffee. Was there ever a point that you maybe wanted to rebel, just for, like, even Heather McDougall at one point went to McDonald's. Of course, she came right back,
Oh, of course. I've tried all those different things, but I knew, here and there along the way, but I knew very quickly, especially like when it came to alcohol, you talk about addictive personalities or behaviors. I knew very quickly I had a very addictive personality and very easily could get addicted to alcohol. That was also at a time in my life, there were a lot of challenges and difficulties that I was going through. And I started reaching for alcohol. And in fact, began where it was like, wow, I started drinking almost every night. And very quickly I realized this is not who I want to be. And I looked around at some family members that I knew peripherally. They weren't in our close family network, but I'd already, that person had struggled with alcohol. And I was like, whoa. This immediately tells me I have this genetic predisposition. I want no part. I'm out. So literally, I took the alcohol that had been in our home, took it all out, put it on the street, and just left it, never going back. So to this day, if anybody, people at, holiday seasons will give me bottles of alcohol who don't know me, right? Like patients or whatever, I immediately just throw them out or give them away. like no interest in having that, because I know, right, that I have that potential. Yeah. So that's the same thing for you. If you struggle with your weight and you know that you love donuts or Little Debbie's or sugar or whatever, it's very clear. Then it shouldn't be anywhere near you. It shouldn't be in your home. It shouldn't be in your office. It shouldn't be in your apartment. It shouldn't be in your pantry. Because if you're serious about your health, you recognize this isn't going to be a challenge. Okay, take it out. So again, that's the whole point here to me, is it's not about being perfect or that I have great discipline, but rather I recognize where my weaknesses and shortcomings are, and I immediately cut them off by channel factoring my life. So that's what we all should be doing with the different challenges we face. And then you will be more successful.
Nice. Here's a great question from Rebecca. What is your favorite book recommendation for patients who are brand new to plant-based or vegan?
Well, I mean, clearly all of Chef AJ's books are the best. I mean, what else would you buy? So yes, I do strongly encourage Chef AJ's books. As far as a book, that's a tough one, because each person has brought their own flavor to the books, right? So whether it be, Gregor's How Not to Die, that's very dense with lots of references and all these things, versus playful, interactive ones, they're all different. And so what I encourage you to do is do your research, know that person you're wanting to share this with, whether it be yourself or someone else. And, what is your style? Are you kind of fun, playful, silly, ridiculous, or are you very science-based? Because you need to, again, this is architecturally designing your life. If you want to convince yourself to move a certain direction, you know what moves you best in that direction. Is it feelings and emotions, or is it science and fact? If it's science and fact, well, then you know the books you need to read and the studies you need to look at. It's that simple, right? But there's so many good ones out there, right? I mean, the list just goes. What's crazy for me is I grew up, my grandfather was a bibliophile, right? So we had a huge 20 by 40 foot library with literally over 100,000 books. And so I grew up with all these books. I still have some of them from the 1800s on plant-based nutrition. So a lot of what people think is new and exciting and cutting edge has been preached for hundreds of years. Right. And so the books all say the same thing: eat the fruits and vegetables, exercise, and change your mindset. Right. And but identifying which way it's said radically influences whether it's successful for moving you in the direction of change. So
Great.
Investigate.
A couple of people are asking about the vinegar, and keep in mind that Tommy Balsamic of California Balsamic is watching.
Oh, no. Well, hey, send me more vinegar. I'm running out.
What are your favorites? Because you do have, I have a Chef AJ pack, and I think you have one of your favorites as well.
I do. And you had turned me on to the vinegar. I make no money from the vinegar, but I get great pleasure from seeing people consuming it, because for many, it really brightens up their meals. The person I love watching eat it the most is my wife, because she loves the curry vinegar. We ran out of a big bottle of that, and she really wants more. She puts it on her rice, on her quinoa, even on her salads. She loves that curry vinegar. I've got some nice pear vinegar right now that I was enjoying the last bits of. I like the teriyaki vinegar. I like the fig vinegar. I mean, it's whatever mood you're in. The beauty of those wonderful flavored vinegars is that you've got the sweets, you've got I like the habanero and some of those spicy ones, the sweet heat. And then you've also got, so many different options. And so it's fun, because especially if you're like me, and I'm going to eat big salads every day and similar foods frequently, well, adding this different vinegar all of a sudden makes it like this whole different plate. Like it's a completely different experience to your palate. And that's fun. And that's very playful. So like last night, I made a big salad with all the usuals, right? Fresh mixed greens, kale, cucumbers, peppers, carrots, celery. And then I chopped up some little avocado in and chopped up also pineapple into it. And then I put the pear vinegar on there, and then I mashed it with like a potato masher kind of, so it all mashed together. It's actually quite good. So yes, so the vinegars I think are a delightful addition to your pantry. Great.
And Linda says, what about decaf coffee?
So, I mean, if 1 cup of black coffee, if decaf is makes your life magical in combination with an otherwise healthy program, I say go for it. But if you're consuming the coffee because it goes well with the donut, the donut and the lox and the bagel, and as soon as you have the coffee, you get the lox, and that's not cool. Now it just led you down a path that you don't want to go on. So a single cup because you just love it, and it makes you happy, whatever, move on with life. That's what I'd say. For me, it's just more money. Why am I buying more stuff that I need to eat that doesn't really do anything for me?
Yeah,
So,
I worry about like the ethics with coffee about, I
right.
think about that, like
Yeah,
the people that are picking the beans and,
absolutely.
people, a lot of times, especially
Right.
people don't think about that when they
Right.
get chocolate or coffee about
Yep.
those ramifications.
It's a very legitimate reason as well.
Great. And a couple people are saying, what does Dr. Esser eat in a day?
Lots of food when he's hungry, bunch of plants. If you want to know what I eat, you can look at Instagram. I put up most of what I eat. Somebody the other day on my virtual group said, "You're not eating enough." And I'm like, I don't put everything up there. I'm busy. I can't take every single photo of every single thing. But what do I eat? My average breakfast is some form. I love greens when like maybe some steamed greens, a big thing of oatmeal, a bunch of fruit. If I can't get the steamed greens, a big smoothie with like some pineapple. My favorite is like a little pineapple banana, a ton of spinach and some turmeric. And then snacks in the mid-morning, if I can get to them in the midst of seeing patients, would be a piece of fruit or two. Lunch, whatever leftovers I have from the night before. And then dinner, something, exciting, always with a huge salad and, and some complex carbohydrate or starch, et cetera. But we run the gamut, right? Everything from sweet potatoes to beans and rice to pastas to this, to meatless meatloaf to this. The list goes on. That's the beauty of it. It's creative, it's playful, it's fun. You make it, you have fun with it. Maybe Chef AJ will invite me back and we can do some food prep together.
Let's please, because
how Dr. Esser prepares food.
You were coming on regularly and then all of a sudden you weren't. So let's get you like kind of on a rotation. We have some doctors that come on monthly, even every other week. So please don't be a stranger. So, and Nana says, how old are your kids and what are their favorite foods?
My children are all young and they like everything you would expect. It's very normal, remember, for a child to want dopamine because it creates a little pleasure, a little bit of an experience of, I feel good in the moment, right? So my children on average will reach for the fruit before they reach for the salad. That's a very normal human response, right? If you're just driven by your feelings in that moment, that's normal. This is important, I think, for your viewers, just real quick, is many of us think of ourselves as broken, as we got a problem, because we want the sugar, because we want the salt, because we want the fat. No, there's nothing wrong with you. That's normal. It's normal for you to want the sugar, right? Because it gives you dopamine and because your brain was wired to want that for survival, because it gave you a sense that, oh, I got the dopamine. That means more calories. That means I'm more likely to survive. So it's very normal. So the reality is, that you should want those things, but because you know that it's not as healthy for you, you make other choices. So my children love all the fruits, every single one of them pretty much. They love dried fruit, they love nuts and seeds, and they enjoy their salads. So I'd say they enjoy their salads. They're not in love with their salad, but over time they will fall more in love with it as they see what it does for them. So for example, my young daughter, when she in the past would get sick, I would be very clear to say to her, oh, what did you eat? Oh, you had more of those sugary things and you stayed up late, et cetera. Well, then it became to the point now where she just goes, well, I don't feel so well. I'm just going to have some salad and greens today.
Oh my God, that's
right. So she'll have, and Daddy, can you make me some green juice? I just want green juice because I have a little sniffle and I want it to go away quickly. Sure enough, green juice, water, salad, go to bed, and it's gone the next morning. And that's what occurs.
We should all live with you.
Well, the key is, is that you and I understand what our behaviors result in, because then we can make informed decisions about as we move forward. But it's also key and essential, something. In our home, we have very little or no of the processed foods, right? So if some chips sneak into the house, or if some processed fig bars sneak into the house, well, the reality is then they need to be very controlled in how they're distributed and consumed, right? And when they're gone, it's my preference, they don't end up back in the home. But that's exactly how you want to create your house. So I say to people jokingly, right, the most unhealthy thing that I can get in my house are some cashews. So if I want something less healthy, I have to get in my car, drive somewhere, get my credit card or wallet out and pay for something. I'm way too lazy to do that. I just as well eat a handful of some berries, have some dates and call it a day here at the house. So that's how you need to create your life. That's why when I say this is simple, it is. But it requires you to be architectural, meaning laying everything out, and channel factor your life for success. Because if you have the other stuff in your home, whether it be your kids or you're going to reach for that stuff. Are you kidding me? You're human. It's normal. It's not that you've got a problem. It's not that you lack discipline. It's you're human.
People are always trying to, like Dr. Lyle comes on over and over and say, it's not because they have emotional problems or had trauma. It's because the food's in their environment.
Right. right? So that's the key is you don't put the food in your environment or you don't go to the food's environment, right? I don't walk into a Chick-fil-A, a McDonald's or anywhere else unless I need to use the bathroom and there's nowhere else. That's it. I go right in, I go to use the bathroom.
Even then, it's not a pleasant experience.
No,
in those
right.
places. I
But,
mean, even their bathrooms are horrible.
Right, that's right. But if you're on the travel somewhere, there's nowhere else you can pee or poop, you go in there. All right, that's it. That's the only thing those places should be used for. For a person who is intelligent, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Adina says, do you personally eat a lot of nuts, seeds, avocado, and tofu?
I eat small quantities of those foods, but not large quantities. Again, I am an ectomorph, so I'm a tall, skinny guy, right? And I exercise a lot and I have a high metabolism. So the challenge for me is time, right? Because I'm so busy with patients and my virtual programs and the online stuff, et cetera, to sit down and take that time to eat that large bowl, right, of the lower calorie density foods. Yeah. But for the majority of us, for the majority of you listening, that's a good problem to have. You want to be dropping your calories or dropping your weight, forgive me, as you're eating the calorie poor, nutrient dense foods ad libitum as much as you want. And then when you get to that healthy place, then you need to just go, okay, I'm not looking to have a BMI of 14, right? So my BMI is around 19 and that's okay. I'd like to put on some lean muscle mass, a little more bulk. That's where I'd like to be. And that would be feel good in my own skin and be healthy. So I eat some of those foods because again, my goals are not continued and perpetual weight loss. But if you're in that phase of weight loss, those foods should not be consumed because they will slow your weight loss. Done end of story, right? When you do Chef AJ's program.
That's what I've been saying. Yeah. People think that if they don't eat nuts every day, they're going to drop dead.
Right. The reality is they won't.
You're super tall too. You're
right. I'm 6'5". I'm a big, tall, skinny guy. And so, I could get away with eating all kinds of horrible foods and it probably wouldn't show up that much on me, but I would know how I'd feel and I'd know what's happening in my arteries and I'd know what's happening in my brain and I'd have no interest in living that way.
I love your passion for, I love your passion for healthy living.
Yeah, well, it's such an exciting thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like, because you see it and I see it. When people get healthy, like that 81-year-old guy, you saw his smile. It's like, boom, beaming to suddenly be like, this is what health is like. Because many of you have put yourself on the shelf. You've said, I'm 50, I'm 65, this happens. It's like, no, the majority of these things don't happen. There is a result of the behaviors we've chosen, and many of them can be reversed or radically moved in the direction of better health. So
it's the same thing like when I work with people that have been overweight or obese and they get down to a leaner weight, they're so happy.
Oh my gosh.
Happy.
Yes. The hormones are being released appropriately. The dance, the cellular chemistry is going on in their body that's supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's, it's funny how you said how your kids like their salads, but they're not in love with them. And I have found for at least adults, the California balsamic helps people fall more in love with
absolutely.
Salad.
Those fun flavors and those things, I love my salad, but I have a rational relationship with it. And I have a full understanding of what it's doing for me. Right. And so as a result, I can make that choice. They say in like a marriage that over time, love is a choice, right? You're choosing to love that person because sometimes the butterflies and the unicorns melt away a little bit. Well, that's the same thing with our food. You have to make that choice to be in love with it every day. And, again, as a child, as an adolescent, you may not be cognitively aware enough to do that. But as you and I, those of you watching who are adults, it's time for us to do that, right? To fall in love with what actually loves us back. Because if you keep saying that you're in love with those food-like substances of abuse, you know where I'm going with this. Those foods are like being in a relationship that's an abusive one. You go and eat that Chick-fil-A, that McDonald's, that hamburger, that fried food, that alcohol, et cetera. You're in a relationship that's abusive. Feels good in the moment, but then it actually damages and harms you. And it's time to break that relationship. It's time to have a healthy relationship with the food so it loves you back.
I love it. Thank you so much. Will you come back as soon as possible?
Absolutely.
All right. Because I don't know how you kind of fell through the cracks. You were coming on regularly. I mean, it's not like because we talk and stuff. So get on the schedule and let's get your wife too, because that'd be fun to see her cook something.
Love it. All right, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Esser. This
Thanks,
has been
Chef
wonderful.
AJ.
I really appreciate it. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow when we have another fabulous guest that's going to be talking about living the nutritarian lifestyle. We have the wife of Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Lisa Furman. And she's not doctor, what am I saying? Lisa Furman. But she almost went to medical school, so she's almost a doctor, I guess. And I guess if you're married to Joel Furman, it's like being a doctor, right? Probably rubbed off. Thanks again, Dr. Esser. Bye-bye.